Bring this up. Right. Okay. So just for reference, we added a ton of people in the past 24 hours. Luis was someone that fell off because he had other obligations he had to get to. Make sure. Okay, we're good. So the new additions are Hector, Canero, I'm hoping I'll say his name right, Carnero, Sandra from up in Canada, and Sandy Lamb, who couldn't be here, but filled out the mural as best she could because she's going to be on a train by the time this kickoff happens. So reasonably, if they're called in at short notice, I wouldn't expect them to be here. I know that David Magdaleno is going to be here within like 10 or 15 minutes, but we'll get started. He'll eventually go in. But at this point, since we're first starting, let's go into introductions, these short ones, and I'll fill in or start talking about the people that did fill out their murals. But we'll start with Himanshu. We'll start with you on the left. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone on the call what you're all about?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Himanshu, and I have been a design entrepreneur, and I have been running an advertising agency and consulting design business. And then I went for a master's program in University of Anhalt, which is also called Bauhaus. It's in Dessau in Germany. And here I'm doing a master's in integrated design, where the course is about bringing people from multiple backgrounds and professions together to take on some problems and kind of integrate all kinds of skill sets to come up with better solutions to problems. So right now I'm doing my thesis, and I will be done like in 2 months from the thesis period.
Are there any particular subject matter topics that really appeal to you? You've listed a lot down here in the gray, and I'm just wondering if there's, out of these three, if there are particular ones that that speak to you the most.
Right now, my thesis is going into, I'm doing the thesis in platforms and ecosystems, and the product that and the solution is on product service system design. So this is the two, and the research is always comes handy, like design research and user research. Without that, we cannot do anything anyways. So, so the top skill sets that I would like to give to the team while we are coming together will be platforms and ecosystem systems thinking, basically, and product service system design and design research.
Fantastic. And for a reference, what are you hoping to get out of your time in this virtual sprint? What are you hoping to do?
I've never been into any kind of design sprint, so this is my first time, and also I'm looking forward to learn Mural by having some hands-on experience with the platform itself. And perhaps I find this tool is quite very innovative and has all the things that are needed to collaborate while doing a design sprint or brainstorming or any kind of collaboration from design projects. So that is what my expectation is, to learn the software as well as the process and the method of virtual design sprint.
Okay, fantastic. Jerome, now I want to make sure I say your name right. Is it Jerome? Or do I say
for English-speaking people, I think that's the best they can do, so I'll accept it.
How is it properly said? So I know.
Yeah. I'll pronounce it in Dutch as well for the listeners here. It's called Jeroen in Dutch. Jerome is very clear.
Okay, so tell us what you're all about.
In a nutshell, I'm trained as a mechanical engineer here in the Netherlands, and after that I joined the Philips organization, Royal Philips Electronics, here in Eindhoven, the headquarters. But I joined there the design department, so the department for industrial design. And in all those years that I featured there, 18 in total, I have always been responsible for business processes, organizational design, business transformation within this global entity, This was a company of, I think, roughly 500 to 600 people worldwide, 12 studios. And I was always involved in the business and organizational side of it. So I'm not a designer myself, I always say. I'm a mechanical engineer. The best lines that I can draw are straight and not curvy. So that also comes with it. But in those 18 years, I really had the opportunity to appreciate the whole process and the capability of design as a holistic discipline. And that's what I have embraced. A couple of years ago, 6 years ago, I left Philips Design, started my own business, and I started in the recruitment area, headhunting and recruiting of design and innovation professionals. So I come out of that industry, I understand how to connect it. So I started in a small recruitment agency together with a colleague from Amsterdam. It's called Talents for You. And there we focus on design professionals that can help to drive change. That's basically our charter. That's why also the challenge that I enrolled in here is also quite intriguing, because I noticed that designers and design professionals, like most of us here around the call, can really create big impact in industry or in organizations or in government, let's say in all the application areas. But that side of the industry very often doesn't know how to formulate its needs, and therefore also what type of a designer, what type of design experiences they need. So I like this challenge very much, because I hope that we can come up with a direction that helps, let's say, the industry side or the customer side of all these design professionals to formulate their needs in a better way so that they benefit from it and that designers can even add more value.
At this point in your professional career, what speaks to you the most? What's kind of drives you in terms of like your interests? Is it still very holistic like you described, or is there one particular discipline or focus that you have?
No, I like the holistic, thinking about the role of design in business. That's what drives me. So I help organizations to formulate how they can leverage design the best possible way, what type of capabilities relate to that, and how to drive it as a business capability. And I've supported not only through recruitment, but I'm also helping organizations to grow their design teams. And one of them, for instance, is 3M in North America. It's one of my customers, where I help them to really boost their culture of creativity. So with their design leadership team. So I'm really trying to drive the role of design and not to activate it, so to say. So that's where I see most potential. But to do so, I want to be very well connected with the design communities in the different areas. And then design, strategy, innovation, research are important capabilities. But I also see that user experience, product design really are, let's say, driving new value propositions. And therefore, that's important as well.
Okay, great. And if you could kindly explain some of the icons that you put down below here in terms of what they represent.
Yeah, well, the first icon is what I like is to come up with ID, but I like to think about it. So it's not like impulsive ID generation, but I hope that I can spark through an analytical and conceptual thinking, the development of new ideas, the light bulb in the brain, so to say. That's one. What I like a lot is tools and methods that help to formulate strategies and business models, that helps with structure thinking as well. Probably most of us know these tools like business model canvas and everything around it. So that's one of the tools that I like. And I'm really passionate about the role of design, the capability of design. So put design in front of it and you have me, you have my attention, so to say. At the end, on the other hand, I like to be very hands-on. I like to help people to drive success. So those two people there, the two individuals there carrying something forward, is something that I like as well. It's not about me. It's about working together and bringing things forward. So that's the Explorer Design Passionate a little bit about. And the icon doesn't relate to the text above it, but I wanted to put it in there as well. Sounds
great. I'm glad you're with us. So. I think you got my messages before about the mural and everything else in terms of kind of getting this together, because obviously there were so many changes that happened with the mural at the last minute that
that's fine. That's fine. For me, it's preparing for the whole session.
Yeah. So with Hector and Riaz, I don't think I know that Hector is last minute. I don't think Riaz is checked in yet. So I'll move on to David. So one thing to know about Dave is that he was part of the pilot program back in November. So he has already gone through this process. I've also interviewed him for a podcast, I think earlier this year. And him and Lee Duncan are somebody that I know very well, Lee's being from IBM. He has a financial background as a financial consultant. He's now in the design field and design consulting. He's usually really good at giving a lot of perspective from the practical side of things. He's also very amenable, so he tries to make sure that he makes himself available or gives his point of view when it seems appropriate. But he's somebody that will give perspective to this entire process, more so than somebody who's come into it fresh. Not saying that people coming into it fresh don't have perspective, but he will definitely have some guidance around how this process works, especially if you're not familiar with it beyond just a physical design sprint. So that's how much I can say for Dave until he comes online, but that's probably a good short introduction to who he's all about. Let's see, I'm just checking to make sure who else has joined. So it's mostly people that are observing. For Sandy, I know of her through the Innovative Hackers group. And she is someone that I've been conversing with back and forth, both in that forum as well as offline. She's going to be the facilitator for this particular design sprint. She's certified through AJ and Smart. She's already done a meetup locally with some guidance from Jake Knapp and from Jonathan Courtney and other folks from the design sprint field. So she's really passionate about the space. I can say that much from my own impression. She looks like she likes to stay organized. She's into complex information, balancing on an all-male team. Well, not yet, because then we just had to research her this morning, so that's not all male. So this is slightly outdated, but that's okay. I'll leave the interpretation of the icons for everyone that's on the call rather than kind of try to explain it, though it might be fun to kind of put our own mix on it in terms of how we see things. Like, she's all about thinking, she's all about presenting, and she wants to go to the moon. So that's about what I see, at least initially. But she will probably be joining us next week. And yeah, it's the only reason why she's not here is because of a train ride. Sandra just joined this morning. Obviously, I'm not expecting her to join because it's last minute. I think I rejiggered the team around 7:30, 8 o'clock before I dropped my son off at school. She's has an educational background, a fairly extensive one, both teaching Spanish and I think at different grade levels. She was originally on Super Saiyan Strengths Finder, but since this was her only available week, she opted to join this particular group, especially for Himanshu, for another researcher that can be on the team, that both of you could collaborate or work in the same space. So I imagine out of the 7 here, the only one that I worry about or wonder if they're gonna come around is Riaz, just because I haven't heard from him yet, beyond like him self-affirming that he's gonna be available for April. But that's at least the lay of everyone that's currently on the team. And I don't expect any more changes beyond the 2 additions that we had this morning, but you never know. We'll just kind of work through it as it goes. The thing I'll talk after before I move on is, does anybody have any comments or questions about the group that we've assembled here?
Have we decided on what kind of challenge we are going to solve in this sprint?
Yep, we're actually going to be getting to that. So that's a good question. That's coming up a little bit later. The first thing we're going to do before that is figure out everyone's availability. So for the 2 people that are in this particular sprint that are on the call, for Himanshu and Jerome, I know you've already filled out your availability for next week. Himanshu, have you already done that?
Yeah, I have done it. Okay. But I want to, in the doodle, I didn't find any option how to export that entire, like the commitment of the calendar to my Apple Calendar or Google Calendar. It said it
doesn't. I think the free version doesn't allow you to do that, but what happens typically after everyone puts in their time is the facilitator, or in this case, both me and Sandy, would look at those available times and then send out meeting invites in Google Calendar that correspond to particular activities based on whether it's Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or other days of the week. So it isn't a direct export or a reservation from Doodle. It's more of look at all the available data that people have submitted around when they're available, and then kind of amass that, figure out what makes sense, and then send invites out to everyone for particular times to work together online and set the high level, what do you call it? The high level calendar of events that will happen throughout the week.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So the next one this is your question from before, is kind of going over the sprint. So the challenge finder is here. If both of you have the chance to take a look at it.
Yeah, I did.
Himanshu, have you looked at it too?
Yeah, I looked at it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is what usually takes the bulk of the time in terms of the online meeting that we're in now. What we're driving towards is in taking what was done by a previous team in terms of forming this particular challenge and discussing what makes sense for both of you around the success criteria, and especially first and foremost for this particular sprint. Now, the ones that are listed here are the top voted items based on the challenge from the previous group. That doesn't mean you have to do all of these. These are just all examples of where things could go. But if you have a better idea or a better concept of how you'd like to be able to go about doing the challenge, the success criteria is the starting point, but you all can, it's really an open conversation at this point. You can opt to choose one that speaks to you in particular, or if none of those do, you can go ahead and double click on one of these note cards here, the digital notes, and go ahead and type in something that you think would be an outcome. So it'd be whatever you would want to put in that space. So then I think it looks like Dave just joined the call. Let me see if he's on.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Good. Hi, everybody. Sorry about being late.
It's okay. Do you want to make a quick introduction of yourself? I kind of gave them an idea that you were that you had been on the previous pilot, that you had a financial background, you were doing a lot of consulting for Crystal Cove. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of add to that?
I'm also a father and partner to a great person here in Brooklyn. And I think that I wanted to expand upon it a little bit. So as Robert had mentioned, I have been doing some advisory and consultancy work. I was on a previous remote sprint, and I have done some on-site design sprints in the past for some clients. And I'm looking forward just to working with everybody, and no job is too small or too big for me. And I'm glad to be part of this team, and I look forward to seeing everybody else showcase their skills. So thanks for the opportunity, Robert.
No problem. Is there anything in particular that you're hoping to get out in terms of an outcome for this sprint? What would you like to see happen?
I'm hoping that people well, it's kind of a optimistic and touchy-feely thing. I hope people that haven't participated in a remote design sprint, how like almost like a light bulb moment or a aha moment that may redefine the way they work going forward and open things up for them. And similarly, I'm hoping that people have a rewarding experience and want to come back and dedicate some of their time going forward to doing these again in the future, and also imparting knowledge that they have either as they take away from the remote design sprint, or just kind of similar to me coming back to this group or to you and seeing how we can get plugged in, because the experience is, from my perspective, has previously been really rewarding.
Fantastic. No, that was perfectly fine being touchy-feely. There was no problem with that at all. Okay, so back to the success criteria. If you look over these digital cards, and for reference, I'll use Muriel to have everyone kind of look at what I'm looking at here. Out of all of those particular cards you see, is there one that particularly interests you? And if none of them interest you, what particular outcome or success criteria do you think the group should be shooting for in relation to the Challenge Finder challenge? and anyone can speak up as they feel the need to.
Maybe I want to bring in a perspective here. Maybe that helps. What I noticed is that of the, let's say, the desired services or solutions, there are many practices already available online. So there are, let's say, several platforms where designers can profile themselves. There are different platforms where freelancers can profile themselves and where potential customers can go there to find what they need. I think what I like about this sprint is that prototype of a wizard. I think that that front end, let's say, specifying the needs of an organization and trying to match that with the available capabilities and resources that are available in the market, I think that's where it still can make huge impact at this moment. I think there are lots of database solutions. There are a lot of platforms where you can have your creative profiles being presented as a design freelancer or a design professional. Can always be better, can always be a different user experience. Let's not talk about that. But conceptually, I think that a lot of business professionals and organizations struggle with formulating what they really need. Let me just give an example. If you think you need a web designer to have a good website, you may have made a mistake because you need to go way before that to have the right information architect, right communication strategy in order to define a good solution that is manifested as a website. And it doesn't start with having a good web designer or a logo designer. And I think that many smaller organizations, maybe not the large ones, but the smaller organizations that can benefit from design could be helped a lot if you give them a tool to formulate their needs in a different way. And that's why I like the wizard type of approach or mindset, or the artificial intelligence maybe as a concept behind it, how to formulate your needs in such a way that the solution that's offered to you is most appropriate. So for me, the first one is a very prominent element. Yeah, exactly. But that's my perspective. Also being in this industry and seeing many of my customers struggling formulating what they really need from design in order to offer them the right solution.
Okay.
My perspective. Open for any other perspective.
Himanshu, what's your point of view on this?
This is a kind of, I guess, the basic need that we are talking about is about understanding the client, basically, I guess, and trying to figure out actually what is the need of the client, which is kind of, as I read these post-its, virtual post-its in this mural platform, that is what I feel. And so I guess it's a kind of tool that we are looking forward is a interviewing tool of the client with the client, so that we can actually understand what is his needs or expectations are about from the project that we are going to work on, going to take on from the client. So maybe a questionnaire or something like that.
Sorry.
Yeah, please come. Please, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, so after making that statement, are any of those 5 digital cards that are already filled out kind of aligned with what you're thinking, or do we have to create a new one?
No, it is aligning with my thinking. I'm kind of getting a kind of a fair enough image of what we are trying to achieve here, but I'm not going specific into it because kind of having a divergent way of looking at this this problem statement that we have, like a need statement that we have here. But as we go ahead with the process, we will definitely come up with some solution that can try to enable us to figure out the client's need or better collaborations in professional projects. With the designer, there can be a better understanding between the designer and the client, and there should be clear communications that what are the deliverables that designer is capable of delivering, and the client's expectations should align with that, because many times it's the communication is a problem, and the client has a kind of very unrealistic expectation, or sometimes it's just based on aesthetics that they are expecting. But both of them are somehow, I feel, is wrong, because designers can give a lot of value in terms of functionality and even strategy, besides from aesthetics and these kind of things. So I'm looking forward to to work on such kind of project which can enable a better collaboration and kind of communication between client and design team. Right?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to, I really liked what Jaron said regarding the first two post-its, if you will, and the concept of a wizard. I was wondering if anybody on the line or team sees a possible extension of this wizard concept. We talked about the client and not really understanding what they're looking for, either from a skill set or experience perspective, or maybe not knowing what it is they're trying to design towards. I also see potentially that concept of a wizard working for the designer that is trying to get their experience highlighted. So the second, actually, I guess it's the one that starts a prototype of a service that lets designers create their profiles and relevant data so they can be contacted by the businesses. I also, I guess we can discuss this further, whether we want to limit the scope to more kind of ensuring that the client can define their requirements succinctly and precisely. But I do see a benefit to other people to kind of not only increase participation from designers, but also them coming to this particular venue or platform, because as a result of this wizard and a logic, or kind of walking people or asking questions to define what skills or background they have, that could be a benefit to designers out there to help put their best foot forward. I don't know if anybody feels the same way about that.
Okay. So it looks like between those three that were discussed, there's elements of each that could potentially kind of work towards the outcome. And I want to make sure that I'm not giving the impression that we drive towards a particular one. All of these could be relevant, but it may be a matter of working through the process to see what kind of generates out of the ideation sessions and the discussions that will happen on Monday and Tuesday. How does everyone feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's good. What I learned also from what Dave just said is, I think maybe the wizard concept, or let's say the idea of having a wizard available, whether you're on the customer side or on the designer side, is, let's say, how to facilitate that process of how to present yourself in the best possible way that's relevant for your customers or potential customers. And on the other hand, to be served through a wizard in formulating your needs, maybe inspired by the design profiles and things like that, to best understand what you need. And I think that's what inspires me the most. If you would say, let's create a design LinkedIn, for instance, or another platform, which are so many of already, where you can have portfolios presented in the way you like it, with keywords and things like that. I think then we're not going to differentiate anything in the market or through spending a lot of time on it. I think if we can come up with that intelligent front end for both parties, and call that intelligent front end the wizard, then I think we can really contribute something that is desperately needed in and around the industry. Whoever wants to buy it from us, that's something else. But I think we are really impacting through the time we're investing in this, besides from learning a lot.
Understood. Okay, with that, I'm going to shift over to the right and talk about target audience. Now, there's three that were kind of outlined in the brief. The business owner who values design but no time to look. Design agencies wanting freelancers with the best match to their business culture, and designers and freelancers. Again, same thing as before. If any of these cards speaks to you in terms of the audience that you're going to be building something for, then great. If you have a different view on who the audience is that you're building for next week, this will be the time to kind of either, and you can self-affirm this, you don't have to wait for me, is you just double click on a card and basically put in an audience type that you think would be perfect for what we just discussed in this previous section here, and we can go from there. So again, like last time, go ahead and speak to anything that's here, or like Jerome is doing, or Harold is, go ahead and put in somebody, an audience that you feel would be perfect for this particular challenge. Roland, you might as well speak, because it looks like you already started with design intermediaries with freelance agencies, correct?
Yeah, well, I run one of those agencies, small boutique agencies, and like I said, I would be benefited even in my business if I would have a solution that facilitates a conversation between my clients and myself about the needs, but also how to best present the designers that I can represent to my clients in a different way. So I think in that sense, in the whole value chain, we're also a potential target group. I do believe in the end it's about business representatives that are in need of design, and designers, agencies, freelancers that offer services. And then, yeah, of course, agencies have a different business model than freelancers. But I think let's add the intermediaries to the target group. I hope I spelled it right. I think I misspelled it, but
it's okay. We're not great against spelling. As long as it's not cursing, I think we'll be okay.
Let me highlight a bit so that you know it's a new one.
Okay. Himanshu, what are your thoughts?
As I learned from our team members and these stickies and the discussion, I feel it's a great project indeed, and I had a similar kind of experience, not in such an elaborate, but a small experience of doing this kind of project in my bachelor's thesis. It was about designing a platform for designers to share their portfolios and trying to protect their rights from the intellectual property rights by using some open source model like Creative Commons, because most of the time when a designer shares an idea which is novel, there is a threat that it gets stolen from either from like some smaller markets or stuff like that. So it was a kind of collaboration platform as well as a showcasing and organizing competitions. So there is a lot that can be done, and I'm very much excited to have to enter into a brainstorming session on this one. And as far as I can see, it's like we need a kind of a process where there is a client requirement, a kind of questionnaire, or like I said before, some kind of a platform or a way that we can make the client to speak up whatever his requirements are, and then we do a need analysis in terms of different areas like design, business, tech, or strategy, what exactly he needs. So sometimes what happens is it becomes a responsibility of the consultant to do the need analysis of the client requirement, and then we do a skill sets analysis that after whatever we got after need analysis, we kind of search on the market what are the skill sets that are needed to match these needs.
So wait, hang on, Himanshu, wait. Let me stop you just for a second. I want to make sure that we're on track for the question I'm asking. So what we're concentrating on is the target audience for this particular challenge, who we are doing this work for. So one of the things that Jerome pointed out just now is that he's interested in kind of building out the solution next week, or a prototype for design intermediaries like freelance agencies. The other 3 digital cards that are listed in section 2 correspond to designers and freelancers, design agencies wanting freelancers, and so on. So my question to you is out of the 3 yellow cards, digital cards that are in that section, is there a particular audience that you feel we should concentrate on for next week? Or is there a different type of audience that you think we should build on besides the 4 that are here? And if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you're kind of angling to, or like emphasizing designers and freelancers, but you'll have to tell me if that's a correct interpretation.
I would say I would go for the first stickies, which is kind of 2-sided platform model in which there is a business and the client, and on the other side is the designers. So we have two-sided market, and we build a platform which as an intermediary on which both of these groups can come together and interact, and there can be collaborations, but it should be facilitated with some kind of tools to have a clear communication, like I said, need analysis and client requirement, clear publishing.
Correct. And we'll be going over that probably through the process next week when we do the design sprint. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about the first digital card, which is reading the business owner who values design but has no time to look at different resources online.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the one you were speaking to?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, got it. Okay. David, what are you thinking? Dave Magliano. Hello, are you there?
I am. Sorry about that, Robert.
That's
I was
okay.
on mute there. I tend to agree with everything that Rome had put down. I'm just trying to, start kind of very, at a very high level. And I agree with you next week as we run through the design sprint. I think the intermediaries, the agencies and the freelancers are really, as a starting point, a good place to start. And then, I think as we run through the process, we'll be a little bit more precise on what it is we're trying to solve for and, expand upon that.
Okay, sounds good. For number 3, the subject matter experts. These are people that we would want to reach out to next week to either ask them about their perspective on this particular challenge, or we would want to interview them after we get our work done sometime around Wednesday or Thursday to get their impressions of what we feel is a proper solution for a challenge finder. Now, I will caveat that subject matter experts don't necessarily need to be always outside the team. They can actually be on the team as well. So if anybody on the call feels like they're ideal to be a subject matter expert in this field, or probably a subject matter expert in particular, because you don't want to interview yourself for the solution that you just made. It's pretty much about subject matter experts. So like Jerome's doing, you can go ahead and put down who you feel would be a proper audience to talk to or record conversations with to inform the team on the challenge. But it looks like you're already way ahead of me. We got intermediaries, a recruiting firm, design talent, online platform owners. Himanshu, you can go ahead and double click on any card as well if you feel that there's one particular subject matter expert we should reach out to at a particular type, because me and a group that's signed up to volunteer to find subject matter experts or to look for them will be taking this list and kind of running with it and seeing who we can get together, whether it's in the Global Virtual Design Sprint already or outside of it.
Okay.
So, Haron, Brian, just to clarify, do you feel like you're a subject matter expert that the team should kind of reference based on your background, what you currently do? Do you think that you have?
I think to some extent I can represent the intermediary role because I do that in different ways, from a headhunting point of view as from a freelance and contracting point of view. So in that sense, I can represent that, but I might actually be able to also connect to others. Okay. The one that I put above it, the design talent online, let's say the online platform owners, let's say a platform. I think you will referencing Dribble or others. I think people that represent these type of products, they might be interested as well, especially in that wizard type of concept. I have a contact in that world that already reached out to, who might be willing, pending availability, of course, to share some time with me or with others from this initiative to benchmark our thinking on his experiences if needed. So I can connect also the initiative, the sprint, to one of those.
Okay. And for those contacts that you have her on, you'll want to kind of connect with Sandy in terms of her being your facilitator.
Okay.
She'll be the person that kind of like makes the connections or arranges those talks. Also, if you already know them and if you want to go ahead and arrange like some sort of meeting with them before, say, Monday or Tuesday of next week and just talk to them for a half an hour, 45 minutes on the topic and record it, that can basically be an artifact that the team could reference offline next week as well. So it really just depends on what you have time to do.
I'll see what I can reach out to them. Yeah, it's a good one.
Sure.
Nice suggestion.
I know that our time's kind of compressed just because of like the mad rush to kind of get everything kind of assembled, but that is an option for you.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
Okay.
Hey, Robert, on that point, I put down the recruiting firm. I similarly can make sure that I speak to a point of contact. I have quite a few here that run pretty big established firms in New York area, and I could ask some salient questions to get the background to be effective next week when we get on a call with the rest of the team. And if we need to go back to them, make sure that I front run it and have a good idea of their availability on an as-need basis for questions from the team.
Okay, fantastic. One question that comes to mind is, I know there's some defaults in terms of like Slack and Zoom and Mural. There's like the defaults, at least for the virtual sprint, but this team has the option of kind of using their own methods in terms of a central repository for documents where they want to upload recordings and so on. You don't have to make a decision on the call now about that, but that's something that kind of potentially when you do your first hour next week is to just kind of align on those, or even maybe offline if you can do it within the Slack channel or some other channel that you guys that you all kind of decide on. But having common platforms probably by Monday at the latest would be a good thing to do. And again, I'll put that'll be something that Sandy will kind of field in terms of a conversation with the rest of the team. But you'll want to kind of think about if you want to keep the defaults that are currently in place, or if there's something that works better for you that you'd like to pitch to the team. So it wasn't really a question. It was more like a heads up that that's going to be coming up. I thought it was a question. It didn't turn out to be. Okay. So it looks like we got a few things. Some we talked about, freelancers, designers, human resource hiring and facility agency. So we got a variety there. I think Himanshu's got the most involved card, but that works. The DHR Design Human Resource Agency. Himanshu, for some of the topics that you're putting in the cards, do you know of individuals that kind of meet those profiles or those definitions?
I will have to look for into in my network in LinkedIn, but I'm sure that we can find some talent house which actually supplies with design professionals to work on projects or to get hired, like a HR agency for design.
Okay. And a quick question on who to interview. The way to think about this space is, out of everything that's been done over here on the left, in terms of the subject matter experts that you're thinking about, talking about for this particular challenge, the people that you would put here would only exist if they are diametrically different. So the idea is that if the subject matter experts could also be interviewees, but if you see a particular audience that's different from your subject matter experts that you want to interview towards the latter part of the week, that would be the space to put it in. You can take a couple of minutes to think about if there is somebody there. If not, and it's blank, then we can move on to the next section. Or you can just kind of verbally tell me that, there's there really isn't anybody that comes to mind that you would want to interview per se that's outside of the subject matter expert realm that you've already stated.
You better hurry up, Robert.
I knew, so I was going to comment on that. I'm fine. We got plenty. We're way ahead of schedule, so we're fine. Okay, so I'll leave that as that. It doesn't look like there's anything that immediately somebody puts up there, but if you want to, you can go ahead and put an audience type. Now, what I want to do for this next section here is just sprint resources. This is default for every mural that I create for Kickoff. So you have links here to different things on Teachable relating to mural. So if you're interested in learning mural at a basic sense as well as a more advanced sense, there's plenty of links here. I have templates for lightning decision jams, the design sprint template for next week, as well as an emotional roller coaster, which is meant to get a kind of feel for the team in terms of what they feel like after different activities. These are mostly for Sandy to use, but you're more than welcome to click on them and check them out if you'd like to. If you're ever interested in the history of how this has kind of happened or gone about, I put the links in here by request. You don't need to have them there. You can, in fact, you can delete them if they aren't of any relevance, which is fine. If you're interested in learning more about the design sprint process, Himanshu, you were asking about this before. These are short videos that kind of explain what design sprints are all about. And this one was meant to be a list of all the different sprint videos that were they were released by Google Ventures, Jake Knapp and John Zaratsky back in 2016, but they give a high-level view of the process each day of the sprint for a 5-day sprint and what's usually done in person. Virtually, it's going to be slightly different, but at least that'll give you the foundations for what the process is all about if you're curious.
Okay.
Also, with the Design Sprint 2.0 overview, that's the follow-up in 2018 to the original Design Sprint process. So this is meant to kind of give you a taste of how an optimized sprint works. And I'm showing all this because depending on the availability of everyone concerned in the doodle that corresponds to this team, I know we originally wanted to do problem framing, and I'm still aiming for that. But if the amount of time that people have don't allow for problem framing to take place, then we may have to do a slight switch. But I'm still planning on working in some activities related to problem framing to hone in on the type of particular outcome that you all want to do. And I'll probably coordinate with Sandy on that as well. There's alternative approaches that explain, like the lightning decision jam explanation videos here. Problem framing this is a short promotional video from Design Sprint Academy. There isn't, I looked online, there wasn't really a problem framing video that kind of explained, okay, here's what this does, here's you go through this, because problem framing as a concept is really a new recipe of different design thinking activities that you do to elicit an outcome, whether they're testing the desirability, the viability, or feasibility of a particular model, or looking at the user journey in terms of where things could go. There could be some service blueprinting involved. It really just depends on how you want to get to some sort of outcome or conclusion to work forward from. And finally, these are best practices related to remote workshops and working online. I put in Jim and Mark's from Mural because they tend to have, that particular presentation tends to have the best overarching view, and their Q&A is really good. I did a remote best practices presentation last year in October, but I'm producing videos in YouTube that will kind of address certain things related to facilitation, design, advising, and so on that you can choose to look at in your own time, but I'll include those if you need to. The whole point of showing you this space is that if there are things that you want to add to this in terms of resources, you're more than welcome to kind of copy and paste URLs and put them in here. This is just to showcase that Mural has the ability to do all of that. Before you start next week, Sandy's going to create a mural that corresponds to your virtual design sprint. There's different templates. This is just the 5-day one, but the template will be in place by Monday for you to basically work through all the different processes. There'll probably also be a deck included with the template, so that if she's going through a facilitation process, that deck will kind of help her out to do that. And Dave, you remember ours is that we had all of them by default that people can pick and choose and modify, and I'll help her along with that when the time comes. And since we have 10 minutes left, there's a little bonus thing down here where you can basically pick your team name if you'd like to, and we can go through a short affinity diagramming, or sorry, a short voting session. So the way to do this is that all you have to do is just select any particular card here, You can, on your keypad, you can do a Command C and a Command V to copy and paste. And go ahead and put in the team name that you'd like to, that corresponds to anything that comes to mind. You can say like the Creative Creators or something of that nature. It can be something related to the challenge. This is just a fun exercise. It's not non-binding if you don't like any of the choices. But I'm gonna go up here in Mural and I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for this. So you're gonna have, I'm gonna give everyone 2 minutes to figure out, to kind of put in some cards in terms of a name you could give the group. And again, you can be silly, you can be serious, anything you like, but this is just to give you an exercise to kind of work within Mural if you haven't done so before and get a feel for what it's like to play with the cards, try different fonts, and so on. So give it a shot and see what you come up with. Zeitgeist. Got 18 seconds. There you go. Okay, so time's up. Now the next part is going to be an example of a voting session you can do in Mural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give, since we have, let's see, 8 cards. Stop that. 8, 11, so it looks like we have 13. I'm going to give everyone 6 votes, and I'll start a voting session right now. What you want to do is vote on the cards. What is the most appealing team name? And I'll give you 6. Actually, I'll give you 7. Why not? Let's go crazy. So you'll in just a second, you'll see a voting interface that will tell you to click a card to add a vote, shift click to remove a vote, and your vote is anonymous. In fact, nobody will be able to see the arrows of anyone in particular as you're moving in and voting on things. So you can vote for something more than once by clicking more than once on a particular one. And when everyone's done voting, we'll go ahead and show the results. So pick any one of these that you like, and we'll use it as the de facto name of the group going forward, rather than just T1, which is a bit, it'll still be the designation for Excel, but I'd rather have something a little bit different. Okay, we just have a couple people left voting. Dave and I finished already. We got just have Haron and Himanshu. Haron has that one vote. It's like, okay, between Design Specifier and Design Explorer, which one do I want? All right, that's done. Himanshu's got 3 left. It's a tough decision between Zeitgeist and Brainstormers. You never know. Now, then again, even though it'll come on the results, some person could potentially put all 7 votes on one. but usually that you'll see in the results when it gets done how that eventually shapes out.
Highest and the lowest that you kill.
Yes. Got 3 more, Himanshu. I won't tell you which way to sway. There you go. 1 more. Which one's going to get that final one? All right, great. I'm going to end the voting session, and you should see the results pop up on your screen. And it looks like the People Wizards is the one that came out on top with the most unique voters and the most amount of votes. Close was the Creative Creators and the Furious 5. But I think People Wizards is probably going to be the one that we move forward with. Now, for reference, once, and I'll move this control panel out of the way, because I put the Zoom panel right on top. So once you get the results out of the way, you'll see that in your interface. You should see a whole bunch of like circle bubbles that have the amount of votes that people have. As long as you don't copy and paste, those votes stay there. And within Mural, you can pretty much call up, if you look at the shared screen on Zoom, you can call up these voting results anytime you'd like. All you have to do is go back up to where the voting dot is up here in voting session, and it will say like show results page, and it will go back to the voting results you just had a minute ago. So there you go. I think we're all set. Does anybody have any comments or questions at this point before we head out? And I can kind of go over next steps too.
No, well prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, all is good.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for attending, everybody. This is great. Like I said, I'll get together with Sandy later on kind of getting set and structuring on next week. If you have anything to add to this after the call, then please do so. Otherwise, you should be seeing some stuff from both Sandy and I coming up over the weekend or even on Friday that could give some structure for next week.